today we are going through another follow along, and actually we're going to do a shortened version of last week's video, which was my daily 7 stretches flexibility routine. So if you want to check out the full version of this routine, that one is around 30-35 minutes. But as I went through in that video, it's something that can be adjusted on the day, so you don't have to spend as long in each of those positions. That routine was more of a relaxed routine. This routine is going to be shorter, a little bit more dynamic, a little bit less relaxed. But for those of you who only want to spend 10-15 minutes stretching, this one's going to hit all those spots, but be easier to fit into your schedule. So without further ado, let's jump into this routine. Again, for this one, you might want to have a couple of cushions, some yoga blocks, something to use as supports for these stretches. It's always a useful one. We're going to kick off with the first position, which is the neck. Now, for this one, you don't have to be seated how I am. Sit however you want. You can even do it standing. All works well. Now, I'm just going to turn to the side so you can see properly. What we're going to do is we're going to create a nice little cup with the hands. So we're going to interlock the hands, have the thumbs pointing down. We're then going to place this on the back of the neck. So you need to have sort of thumbs going down the side of your neck, sort of around the jawbone. Clasp the hands, and then this little line underneath with the index finger should kind of go right underneath the base of the skull. So you should feel like you can kind of clasp the back of the head. And then what we can do here is we're going to try and feel like we can pull up and away, but we're also going to try and pull our shoulder blades down. So we're going to try and increase this gap by pulling and pulling up with the hands and pulling down with the shoulder blades. So get yourself into that position. So actively, not firmly, we're just going to press, clasp the head, pull up, pull the shoulder blades down. You should feel immediately a bit of a stretch going into the neck, probably into the levator scap, which is going to go down the back of the neck as well. And then we're just going to chuck the chin onto the chest as well. So using the hands slightly to push down, but mainly pulling up. And then you're just going to tuck the chin on the chest. I'm just going to hold this position for about 30 seconds. So it's kind of an active one. Make sure, again, the entire time you're going to be pulling the shoulder blades down and away from you. You're going to be trying to lift the head up very slightly and keeping that chin tucked. Just another couple of seconds here. Keep the chin tucked. And then you can relax that one. You can do a little bit. Just moving the neck from side to side, even looking up a little bit and away, so it's going to get a little bit more into sternocleidomastoid and the scalenes. Just generally moving it around, but when you're moving the neck, always try to think about kind of reiterating good posture in this one, because that's going to really exacerbate the stretch over some of those neck muscles. From here, we're going to stay seated how we were. I'm just going to turn to the side so you can see. We're going to clasp the hands behind us, so interlock the hands. We're going to then try to pull our shoulder blades back and down, lifting the chest. And we're just going to reach behind us. So we're going to keep that same chin tucked position, but we're going to try and reach the hands down and away from us. Again, we're going to hold this position actively. So I'm actively pulling my shoulder blades back and together and down, tucking the chin. Should feel a little bit of a stretch over the biceps potentially, into the shoulder, but also into the neck as well. I'm just going to hold this for 30 seconds. I'd recommend actually, if you can doing this seated on the floor, because then we can transition a little bit easier into the next stretch. So keep holding. Just another 10 seconds here. Again, actively lifting that chest up. Tucking the chin. And then from here, I'm just going to flip onto my hips. So you're going to need to come into a seated position. So take your time to get there. We're going to come into with the hands behind, just outside shoulder width, fingers facing away from us, and then we're going to start to wiggle those hips again forward. So we're going to get a nice stretch now over the biceps and the chest. So you're going to keep wiggling them as far as you can. Again, like that first position, it's an active one. So we're going to try and pull the shoulder blades back and lift the chest up. Once we get ourselves into a nice decent stretch, we're going to hold this for 30 seconds. But over this 30 seconds, we're just going to let the hands slowly move out. So you can see here, my hands are just slightly sliding to the side. As we do that, all we're going to find is that we transition a little bit from stretching the biceps, predominantly, and the anterior delt, to a little bit more integration of stretching the chest out as well. So just gradually, as you feel comfortable, you can slide, and then you get to a point in which probably it's going to be quite hard to hold, and then double shoulder width is probably a good width to stop at. I'm going to keep on holding this for another 10 seconds here. Remember, actively pulling those shoulder blades back, lifting the chest up. Cool. We can come from here, shake that off a bit. We're just going to lie down on our back. So that was position 2, shoulder extension. We're now going to go into position 3, which is the glutes. Now, we're going to do a nice simple one here. First of all, we're going to start with the left-hand side. Just going to bring the left foot over onto the knee, resting the shin on the knee. I'm just going to grab that right leg with our hands. So I'm going to clasp the hands. I'm going to then pull the knee towards us. Now, when we pull the knee towards us, I also want you to use your left arm to try and push this knee away from you as well. So we don't want to hug it up just yet. We want to pull it close to us, but we also want to keep it externally rotated. So we're going to actively pull the right leg close, but try to push the left leg away so you get that rotation. We're just going to hold this position for about 30 seconds or so. Should feel a reasonable stretch over the glutes. Probably a little bit maybe into the adductors as well. So that's the inside of the thigh, but mainly the glutes. And all you're going to do is focus on is just trying to pull a little bit deeper over this 30 seconds as that stretch feeling dissipates a little bit. We're then going to let that right leg return to the ground. We're going to shift our hips to the left-hand side by about 5-10 centimeters, just so that right leg is outside of our center line. And then we're then going to pull this left knee towards opposite shoulder, and we're going to let our right leg just drop a little bit to the side. So you're going to sort of get a little bit of a twist going through the spine, but you're going to feel again that stretch going onto the glute, but now it's going to shift a little bit more around that posterior hip capsule. So again, pulling left shoulder to right, left knee to right shoulder. Just like before, we're going to sit here for 30 seconds. I'm just going to hold this position. So there should be a little bit of a twist going as well, a little bit of spinal rotation. You might get some cracks in the back. It's all good. Should feel a nice deep stretch. This one's quite a good one. Big fan of this. Again, if you find this one, particularly tight or particularly enjoyable, pause the video. Spend a little bit more time with these 2 stretches. Maybe do another one per side. Nothing wrong with that. Right, we're going to come back to the center. Same thing. Right leg goes over left leg. We're then going to grab our left leg, pull it towards us, whilst also using that right elbow just to push the right knee out so we get that external rotation. I'm just going to put it into a stretch. I'm just going to hold. Again, good to know if there's a bit of a difference per side here. Does the stretch feel more intense? Can you get less range of motion? Like I mentioned before, just spend an extra set on the tighter side if you want to. Just keep holding. Another 5 seconds here. I'm going to just return this leg down again to the ground. We're going to move the hips over by about 10 centimeters, so that leg's outside of the center line. Going to drop the hips over to the side, and we're going to pull that left, right knee to the left shoulder. Get my lefts and rights mixed up. Again, just hold this position. So I'm still trying to keep a little bit of that relaxed element with this sort of stretching routine, although it's a little bit quicker. There's going to be some more dynamic elements as we go, but I still like to keep my daily stretching on that more relaxed side of things. And then on those couple of sessions a week where I go a little bit harder, use loaded stretching, some active methods, that's when I'll do that sort of harder dynamic sort of stuff as well. Perfect. So you can shake that off a bit. And then we're just going to come into, first of all, a squat position. So if you can get into a squat position, I want you to sit down into the deepest squat that you can. So if you can't quite sit in this nice deep squat position, just grab yourself like a support in front of you, something you can hold on to that's going to stop you, and then you can sit back a little bit more into it, and it's going to reduce that requirement for flexibility. We're then going to work now on the fourth position, which is squat / pike, but it's mainly going to be focused around the pike. But I like to spend a little bit of time just in the squat to begin with. We're then going to now start with the pike, but we're going to start with a slightly bent leg version. So I'm going to turn around to this degree. So I'm just going to allow myself to relax. I'm going to bend the knees enough so I feel a little bit of the stretch comes off the hamstrings, and then I can kind of sit with this stomach connected to the legs position. I can just relax. So if you're a little bit higher up, you can't get hands to the ground, feel free to get yourself a bit of support, but I'm just going to sit in this position just for about 10 seconds or so. Slight knee bend. And then what we're going to do first, we're going to add that twisting motion in. So I'm going to twist to my right hand side. As I twist to my right hand side, I'm going to try and straighten my left leg. Again, if you're up here and you can't touch the ground, this is when you're going to want to have a little bit of support so you can comfortably support yourself. We don't want to be hanging out in max stretch in this position. So, starting in both legs a little bit bent, rotate to the right hand side, straighten the left leg, going to hold for a few seconds, return to that bent leg position, switch to the right hand side, left hand side, straighten that right leg. Turn to the bent position. So I'm going to do 3 reps per side, pausing sort of 3 or 4, 5 seconds each side. So back and forth, straighten that right leg now to the left hand side. Last one on this side, so straighten that right leg, that left leg, reach to the right hand side. And last one, twist to the left, straighten the right leg. Okay. And then keeping both legs straight, we're going to try and grab an anchor point. So whether that's grabbing onto the ankles, whether that's grabbing onto the feet, or getting a full hand under the feet if you can do. We're then going to try and just straighten the legs and hold this last position for 20 seconds with straight legs completely. Trying to put ourselves nice and deep into this pike position. And then we can return to that squat very briefly and just move things off a little bit. Right, so now we're going to go on to position 5. We're going to go onto the hip flexors. So I'm going to place a yoga block or some comfort against the wall, because we're going to want a wall for this bit. Again, like beforehand, this intensity of this is going to be dictated by how close you get your knee to the wall. So I'm going to start with the right hand side. Try and get that knee as close as you can do. Obviously, the more close it is, the more intense the stretch is. And then all we're going to do is we're going to come down to this low lunge position again. So letting this knee drop out to the side if you need to, and trying to get the hips nice as low as possible, and just kind of moving around in this position. We're going to spend a little bit less time. So that the prior stretch we spent almost 5 minutes per side on the hip flexors. We're just going to spend a minute in total here. So we're going to do 30 seconds in this position and 30 seconds in an upright position. But get yourself into a reasonably comfortable position here. This shouldn't be a really intense stretch. This should just be a moderate stretch at the moment. So I'm going to spend another 10 seconds here, just kind of chilling out, letting the hip flexors and the tension go a little bit. And then now we're just going to walk our way up to fully upright position. So we're going to try and get our hips as close to the wall as possible, and then nice upright with the chest. And then from here, we're going to do a little bit of PNF. We're just going to try and tuck the hips under. So you can imagine like we're going to try and spill water out the back of our hips and squeeze the glute. So do that for 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. I'm just going to do one more of those. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. So the last little 10 seconds here, and we're going to swap sides. As I said, this one's a little bit quicker. I'd love to spend a little bit more time in the hip flexor. I think the hip flexors need that 3, 4, 5 minutes in a stretch just to really open up. But for those of you who don't have the time, this is going to have to do.
So we're gonna come back down to the floor. We're gonna swap sides now. So left-hand side, get that knee as close as it can to the wall again. If it's too intense, move it a little bit further away. Come down into that low lunge position, letting that leg drop out, hands firmly on the floor, and then just focusing on letting this left hip relax down towards the ground. So it's about 30 seconds here, kind of getting used to the stretch before we then sit more upright. Just chilling out here. Just try to feel that stretch go down a little bit. 5 seconds. And then we're just going to push ourselves up to that upright position. Again, trying to get hips as close as we can to that foot. Get a little bit comfortable with the stretch. And then we're going to do that contraction. So we're going to try and, again, tilt the pelvis, squeeze the glute for 5 seconds. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And relax. You should feel, as you squeeze that glute, as you try to tilt the hips, it should get more intense, the stretch, increasing the stretch over the muscle. But afterwards, you should feel a little bit of a relaxation, a little bit of easing of tension. Gonna do another one here. So squeeze the glute, try to tilt the pelvis. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax. And then just 10 seconds here. Just feeling that stretch out. Nice and upright with the torso. Deep stretch over quad, hip flexor. Right, that's that stretch. We're then going to come down into position number 6 out of 7, so we're pretty close to being done. We're going to do a seated pancake. So if you're a little bit tighter, this one actually can be done seated. I'm going to modify a little bit so this routine is slightly easier. So we're going to go into a nice seated position, as wide as we can with the legs. And then we're going to grab our feet with our hands. So we're going to have this bent leg position, nice and wide as we can, and we should be sitting. And what we want to feel like, we're going to spend just a few reps, but we're going to try and roll our pelvis forward, and we're going to try and feel like we're going to rotate the hips so we can sit on the top of the hamstrings as opposed to sitting round on the glutes. So we're going to try and lift the chest, push the hips through, hold for a few seconds, and then come back. So I'll just turn to the side so you can see that a little bit better. So again, it's on that rounded position, lifting the chest through, rolling the hips, come back to that rounded position. That's 3. I'll let you do 2 more. Should be on the last one now, so I'm going to do one last one, lifting the chest through. And then from here, we're going to keep hold of our feet, and we're just going to let those feet slide out. When we get to a point of stretch, we're going to stop. Then we're going to try and do a hamstring curl. So I'm going to try and drive my heels down into the ground. I'm going to hold that for 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3. Keep driving those heels down. 2, 1. And breathe out. And try and let those heels sink down a little bit further. Again, get into the maximum sort of bit of stretch. You go a bit deeper than that. We're going to do another one here. So another heel drive. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let the heels sink out further if you can to your max range. And we're just going to hold this end position. If you can get the leg straight, let it go straight, but bent is also fine. If you kind of struggle with this one, it can be, you can go back and you can do this, but with like your hips elevated on, say, a couple of yoga blocks, so you can get a little bit more leverage here. We just want to be able to relax in this position. Just another 5. Lovely. Finally, I'm going to finish up with the 7th position. In the longer routine, I like to sit in a hero's pose for a couple of minutes, but in this routine, we're just going to shift in towards an upward dog position. So, hands at shoulder width, just drop the hips forward, keep the chest nice and upright, try to let the hips drop down, and we can move around a little bit if we want to, but most of the time we're just going to sit and we're going to breathe in this position for about 30 seconds or so. So as I said, like, you can rotate a little bit, trying to drop one hip to the side. Rotate the other side, trying to drop the other hip. So again, just focusing, bring yourself back to that breathing as well. Another 10 seconds. And that is basically the routine. So that is the shortened version of my daily 7. We're still covering the same positions as we did beforehand: the neck, shoulder extension, glutes, hamstrings, hip flexor, pancake, and some sort of global extension, general relaxing sort of stretch. I personally prefer the original routine, the 30-minute one. As I said, I don't do 30 minutes every single day. I might focus on just a couple of the positions and then glance over the rest of them, you know. It doesn't need to be that. You need to just pay attention to how you feel on the day and kind of try to adjust things from there. But if you're a little bit short on the time, I hope this routine was helpful for you. It's a little bit easier as well, a little bit more of a basic one. The first routine was a little bit more advanced as well. So if you're a beginner, it's a good way of easing into it. If you're going to give this a go, if you're going to try and implement this, please let me know. I'd love to hear how you get on and how you're going to use these routines. So leave a comment in the comment section down below. If you just enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button and support the channel. Right next to it is that subscribe button if you want to join the Bodyweight Warrior Tribe. But that has basically been it for this week, guys. I'll catch you in the next episode. Have a strong week and peace.